Welcome back to Interconnected with Jourdan. I'm your host, Jourdan Saunders, and this episode is for anyone whose life has shifted suddenly or even gradually after maybe a diagnosis, a stroke, a brain injury, and found themselves navigating a whole new rhythm of daily life. Maybe you're trying to get back to doing the things that matter most or helping a loved one do the same. You're looking for care that meets you where you are and honors every part of the journey. I'm joined today by Dr. Christopher Gaskins, occupational therapist, neuroscientist, educator, and founder of NeuroSuite, a concierge neurorehabilitation company bringing personalized science-backed care into people's homes and lives. So, Christopher, I'm so glad you're here. And I want to start with you telling us where you are joining us from today.
Yeah, Jordan, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this opportunity, and I'm coming from Washington, D.C.
Awesome. So, we are in the same area. I'm
All
in
right.
Virginia. I wanted to start by going back before NeuroSuite, before the PhD. You were working as an occupational therapist at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center when something shifted for you. You started asking deeper questions like, what's really going on in the brain while people are trying to do everyday things? Can you take us into that moment and how it changed the direction of your work?
Sure. So I had the pleasure of working at Walter Reed from 2011 to 2017. My first job out of school, out of OT school. I graduated from Howard University, and it was just an amazing experience where I had opportunity to work with clients with a variety of various challenges, from traumatic brain injury, to amputations, stroke, you name it. So really during my time specializing in neuro rehab in the outpatient setting, I realized that a lot of patients did well and some did not do as well as that we hoped. And it's the ones that did not do quite as well that's really kind of bothered me. And there are two things I realized. One, that the healthcare system was not as interconnected as it should be. And sometimes that will come to the deficit of the patient not being able to get holistic, comprehensive care. And then two, I felt that as practitioners, we need to know more about the brain and why some things work and some things don't. But in particular, we need to understand this nuanced relationship between cognition, so our executive functioning, how we attend to things, how we might memorize things, how we learn, how we concentrate on things. And we need to juxtapose that with the motor function and understand how those two really connect. Meaning that what really goes through the cognitive process is somebody's learning how to grab a cup or, say their granddaughter's name for the first time. And if we understand how that piece really works, we can better advance motor recovery. So that's really what kind of pushed me to kind of search beyond my clinical experience, and try to learn more about the brain, and which ultimately led to starting my company.
You mentioned the curiosity, the whole person diving deeper.
Yeah.
And that curiosity really carried you into neuroscience and, like you said, eventually founding NeuroSuite. I imagine, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that transition from clinician to scientist to entrepreneur came with its own learning curve. So, can you tell us what pushed you to create something new? What was missing in the care people were getting that you wanted to offer?
Yeah, good question. So I felt like there was not a bi-directional relationship between clinical experience and research. Clinicians were not talking to researchers so that research could be informed and ask appropriate research questions. And then researchers were not talking back to clinicians to better understand how they can guide their work and make sure that what they're developing or studying can actually have impact, clinically. So the picture that I'm showing here just really kind of represents the impetus for me to bridge this gap between clinician and researcher. This is one of my beloved patients I worked with during my earlier days as occupational therapist, working on meaningful things such as gardening, working on attention and balance, and visual scanning using essentially virtual reality, and also doing community reintegration as we were going to, I believe, Cheesecake Factory that day. And just really this experience made me want to shape my career such that it's necessary for clinicians to be able to bridge that space into the research space, but then also make sure that we carry forward these questions about function and meaningful occupation. We have to carry that through to the research. And that actually was a challenge that I found, especially being a PhD student in a neuroscience and cognitive science program. I'm at University of Maryland, where it's really basic science and the theory behind it. And sometimes it's not always about how things can apply to actual the public health for the benefit of the public health of the people. And sometimes that bothered me a lot. So it was always a balancing act of learning about the theory that can inform practice. Then whenever I can, trying to push ideas from the practice forward to kind of push the research forward.
I like what you said about being siloed. So when clinicians and researchers, there's not the bridge sometimes. And so maybe a researcher may stay and do their research, and the clinician is doing their therapy or staying in their setting. You talked about that and how important that is. One of the other things that you talked about was community. And when I think of occupational therapy, I'm thinking of a therapy room, but not thinking outside of the therapy room, going into the community. You're working with people in their homes, helping them reach goals that matter to them, like getting dressed, moving through their space, cooking a meal, maybe eating their favorite cheesecake from Cheesecake Factory, managing memory. So, what does that process look like when someone comes to you? How do you figure out what their version of recovery and function looks like?
Yeah, great question. So I'm able to provide that care through my company NeuroSuite, as we mentioned earlier, which is a concierge service. So we provide outpatient neurorehabilitation services, primarily OT, occupational therapy, but it's not in traditional brick and mortar. It's in the comfort of clients' homes because we want to meet them where they are and directly address their goals. So how it looks in our setting is that we simply ask the question to the client, what are your goals? What's important to you? And we always preface it with, all right, now we're coming to the most important part of the evaluation. Like, one, what are your hobbies and what is most important for you to do? And you'll be surprised how many patients take a pause and they really have to think about it. And even a patient I evaluated last week said, like, nobody's ever asked me that before. And that's really unfortunate. So I believe in just keeping things simple and just simply asking the client what's meaningful to them. And if it is something that's more along the lines of activities of daily living, like dressing, taking a shower, then we're able to address that in that home environment. If it's something a little bit more higher level, like being able to return to work or maybe learn how to use a robotic device to use an arm again, we do that in the home as well, but it might take on more of an interesting, dynamic setup.
That's valuable, meeting people where they are. And also, too, what is valuable to them. If you have goals that you're working on, it could be easy to jump right into the goals
Hmm.
and focus on what you think the client should be working on based on what areas that they could be working on. But to put it back into the client's hand and ask them, what is it that's valuable for you where you're at in your life, is huge. This brings me to my next question. You've been doing cross industry work for a while: occupational therapy, neuroscience, technology, consulting. Why do you think this kind of interdisciplinary approach is so needed right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, tapping into the earlier point about Clinicians need to be able to be in the door to inform the research that's being developed. And then on the other end, researchers needing to be able to consult with clinicians and patients also to really make sure that the work that they're doing is meaningful and it's going to have an impact. It's going to be able to cross over. But then I see the value in rehab professionals across many areas, whether that be academia, teaching, research, but then also health tech, health tech consultation. Something challenging that I see a lot out in the clinic or out in the clients' homes, out in the field, is that when patients leave like that inpatient rehab setting or subacute and they get home, and maybe after that home health trial is done where they get home health services, they're kind of lost in the sauce. Like they are looking for ways to get better, and they don't have somebody really readily to talk to them or advise them, and they go on Amazon and they buy all this stuff. All these rehab equipment and devices with these claims of, significant recovery and improving arm function and cognition and this and that, and then they get it. And then with these products, there's not proper education or explanation. There's not proper support built into the system. It might be a very simple pamphlet. But what if that patient has visual challenges and they can't quite see? What if they learn differently, more of a visual learner? Like, these companies are sometimes lacking in the way that they educate patients on how to use their product. And then what happens? We have what we call, like in research, you have high rejection rates. Patients eventually pay for that product, but then they eventually reject it or don't use it or abandonment. And you have a waste of the client's hard-earned money, which is a concern, and then the patient's not getting the full benefit of their product. So OTs, speech therapists, PTs, we have a huge opportunity to work with these health technology companies and provide consultation. One, to make sure that the product is feasible for the client, the ideal client, and then making sure that it's being rolled out in a simple way so that somebody can actually use it. Just something as simple as saying, does this patient have a caregiver in the home that can help you put on this challenging orthotic? Can improve, satisfaction rates with these devices tremendously. But we have to know ask the right questions, and that's why we need rehab professionals working with these health tech companies.
Yeah, you speak to an important point, really building with professionals, interdisciplinary, as well as the community that you're trying to serve, the product is trying to serve. And really not only looking at, oh, this is a great product, let's roll it out, but let's roll it out with and build with the community as well as an interdisciplinary team. NeuroSuite, I wanted to dive a little bit more into technology. You spoke a little bit about that and things like virtual reality, cognitive tools. Could you talk about how you decide which tools to bring in? Maybe you can take us through someone that you have in mind of what technology you would use or some of the tools that would help make it personal and not just clinical.
Yeah, sure. I'm actually working on I guess you can say, algorithm or clear process that helps the therapist walk through, at least if you're working with a patient with neurological dysfunction, walk through how to appropriately recommend various products. But some key things I look at are obviously the objective findings of an assessment. So, for example, I specialize in upper extremity function, so utilizing things like the Fuglemeyer assessment, the box and block test is critical. The motor activity log to get an understanding of how a patient uses their limb throughout their day to day. And again, what their goals are is key. Then also, financial is important. I touched on that a little bit earlier, but knowing what devices are covered by insurance and what is not. And that's very useful. So really those three major components: objective assessments, the patient's goals, and then the device, how the financial picture is it covered by insurance or not. Those are kind of the three guiding lights, and then always time too, because of fourth factor. I rarely definitively say after my evaluation, okay, this is the device you need to get, because I want to be very careful in that guidance. So I usually actually work with the client at least for a week, sometimes even 2 weeks, before we finalize that discussion. And then we usually have a sit down patient education session in which we go over the different devices and then we finalize our recommendations and then we kind of go from there.
Okay. And then what about in terms of the community? You go into the community a lot through the work that you do, but also with partnerships. I saw on your website you have work with TBI or traumatic brain injury support groups across Maryland. Um, why is that outreach piece important for you? And what kind of impact are you seeing when you show up in those spaces? Are you all using technology together? Are you doing different outings? What does that look like in real time?
hmm I'd love for it to build to that point. But at the very basic level, it's simply just reaching out to the community and letting them know of services that are available to them, whether that's through NeuroSuite, whether that's through other community partners, whether that be like a physical therapy company or a speech therapy company, or letting them know just about their rehab potential and what devices they may benefit from. I didn't share earlier, but I recently made the decision to start working as a full time healthcare consultant to pursue my company NeuroSuite full time. So I'm about 2.5 weeks into it full time, first time ever being full time. So I'm very excited. But yeah, right now we try to at least speak once or twice a year at these various stroke support groups, brain injury support groups. But not on full time. We probably will kind of build out that relationship even more.
Okay, well, first of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's exciting. 2 weeks in. Well, I do want to shift gears because you are a girl dad.
Yeah.
I don't know how old your daughter, or do you have two girls or one girl or
Just
three?
one, Nyla.
Okay. Okay. I'm not sure how old she is, but if we asked your daughter what her dad does, what do you think she'd say?
Right now, well, just because she will be 3 in August, she will have no idea. She just likes it when I wear. I have on kind of beige, purple. I mean scrubs right now, but she loves it when I wear purple scrubs because that's her favorite color. So what she will say
Okay.
right now is, Dada has on purple like me.
I love it.
But one day, I just hope that she will say Dada is helping people. That's really it. Like
Yeah.
Dada is just out helping people. That's the most important thing for the game, from what I do.
I believe kids simplify it so much.
Yeah.
We, as humans, have a very technical, and we're so connected to what we do. And then you ask children, "What do you do?" My dad helps people for a living years
hmm
down the line. But I love that because you truly are with what you're doing, and there's such a need. I love your background and the work that you do. So I wanted to ask you, if someone's watching right now and maybe they're understanding a little bit what NeuroSuite does, but they still don't know who it would be for. How would you describe it to someone that would want to know more about it?
Yeah, I would simply say it's like the tagline on the website. On my website is that you deserve a neuro rehabilitation specialist. You deserve somebody that specializes in working with people with neurological challenges, whether that's stroke, brain injury, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, brachial plexus injury. I go on and on and on. But you need a specialist, somebody that one is passionate and is niched down in that space, and they're going to be knowledgeable of the resources that are available to you, the best evidence-based practices, and then also just somebody that just smiles and just nice and caring. then also somebody's going to push you a little bit too. You got to get out of your comfort zone to have neuroplasticity occur. I mean, that's just science. Um, that's the most important thing. You deserve the best. A lot of patients out there, and I hear the same story every time, that they're not satisfied with their health care, and that sometimes they feel left kind of behind or left alone. And I hear stories where patients have gone for years without having therapy, whether that be OT, speech, you name it. That's just disheartening to hear. So just know that you deserve care. You deserve it now when you want it. And just take that first step and, contact someone like NeuroSuite or someone else who specializes in neuro rehab. But, you deserve the best. And that's what we do.
And what's the best way to connect with you if someone wants to learn more, someone is interested in NeuroSuite?
Yep. The best way is via email, the welcome team at neurosuite.rehab. If that's too much to remember, if you just Google NeuroSuite, and my name, Christopher Gaskins, the website will pop up and you can fill out an interest form there, and I'll usually be able to contact you same day, if not within 24 hours.
Christopher, thank you for taking the time. What you shared today is such an important reminder, especially when we're talking about neuro rehab. It's not about getting people back to normal. It's about meeting them where they are, understanding what matters to them now, and building forward from there. Care that's thoughtful, grounded, and personal. To those who are listening, maybe you're figuring out new ways to move through your day, or showing up for someone else while you're trying to hold it together yourself. Just know there's no one right way to do this. You're not behind, you're not alone, and you deserve the support that actually fits you. Not just a diagnosis, but the human experience behind it. Until next time, your path is yours, but you're not walking it alone. So let's keep showing up together and stay interconnected.